Good evening. My name is John Hoekstra, and I'm Executive Director of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust, and I want to welcome you to the 2022 Greenway Annual Dinner. I just had to soak it in for a moment, just looking out across the room. It's so good to see so many of you in person after these 3 years of being confined in Zoom boxes. This is great. It's also really fun and gratifying to look out over the room and see so many familiar faces and also so many new friends. This is what the Greenway Dinner is all about. Whether you've been to many Greenway dinners or if this is your first, in fact, especially if this is your first dinner, we want you to feel welcomed and know that we're glad you're here. The diversity of people in the Greenway is amazing, and we know that we're at our best when every voice is heard. The tables that we're gathered around tonight are set with a spirit and a commitment to inclusion, to valuing the diversity of individual experiences and perspectives, and to finding connection on common ground. Each of us brings something special and unique that combines here to make the annual dinner such a special event and makes the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area such a special place. This place we now call the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area has, since time immemorial, been the historic territory of many different Salish and Sahaptin people who are represented by modern-day federally recognized tribes. We acknowledge their sacred spiritual connections with these lands and waters and their living heritage that connects past, present, and future. We respect their sovereignty and continuing rights across the landscape. And we strive to support tribes by doing our part to protect and steward the landscape as they have for millennia. As we begin the program this evening, I would like to thank a number of individuals and organizations that have made this evening possible. First, please join me in saying a really big thank you to the Convention Center staff. They've been here all day setting up this beautiful room, preparing and serving this delicious meal, and we're grateful for your role in making this event happen. Next, please help me thank our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor, Greenvelope, our leadership sponsors, Carter Subaru, Geoengineers, GGLO, REI Co-op, and TriPoint Homes. Our friends of the Greenway, AAA Washington, K&L Gates, Menashtash Media, Perkins Coie, Symetra, the Nature Conservancy, and the Trust for Public Land. And our in-kind sponsors, Annie's Art and Frame, Chateau Ste. Michelle, and Merrill Images. Thank you all for making this evening possible. Government leadership and support for the Mountains to Sound Greenway is vital, and so we thank tribal leaders and elected officials who are here with us tonight. If you are a tribal leader or elected official, could you please stand so we could recognize you for your leadership? Next, would members of the Greenway Trust Board of Directors please stand? There's a lot of you, and I'm grateful for that. You all bring so much experience and represent a broad range of our close partner organizations, and we thank you for sharing your wisdom and your guidance with the Greenway Trust. I'd also like to take this moment of thinking about board members to make some special appreciation. First, to Doug McClelland down here in the front, who has served as for the last 3 years as our board president. Thank you, Doug, for giving so much of your time. And next table over to Allison Washburn, who has stepped in to be our current board president. Thank you, Allison. And one more little special shout out around Greenway board leadership. I was super excited when I looked at the RSVP list. We have 2 former executive directors here, Cynthia Welty, Nancy Keith. Thank you both for being here with us tonight. And for all of your leadership of the Greenway. I'm so happy to follow in your footsteps. Right. To our Greenway advisors who represent many land managers and interest groups serving tirelessly on committees, task forces, and collaboratives, thank you for all you do for the Greenway. And to my fellow Greenway staff and crews who wake up every day dedicated to pursuing the Greenway Trust's mission, thank you for all you do, and especially for the indefatigable enthusiasm that you bring to our work together. Why don't you stand up, Greenway staff and crew? They're hiding. Stand tall, wave. Thank you all. Greenway visionaries provide vital financial support for the organization. Thank you for your generosity. And last, but certainly not least, our student interns are the Greenway leaders of tomorrow. We're glad that you're here with us tonight, and we look forward to the future that you will help to shape. Could the interns that are here stand up and be recognized? I'm not sure where you're sitting. Thank you all. We have so many exciting achievements to celebrate tonight. And before we start a traditional highlight of this event, the Parade of Accomplishments, I want to take a few minutes to reflect on why do we come back together for the Greenway Annual Dinner every year. It's one of the Greenway Trust's most enduring traditions. The first dinner with an awards program was held in 1994, organized by Nancy Keith, right down here, at the Museum of History and Industry, which at the time was located near the University of Washington, not on South Lake Union. It was a comparatively small gathering and featured a hand-drawn map of the Greenway and an old-school projector with a slide carousel of photos. We've come a long way since then. Just look around, this amazing room filled with twinkling lights and big screens and all of you. What hasn't changed, though, is the spirit and the meaning of the annual dinner. On its face, the annual dinner is a reflection and a celebration of the last year. It's a place to meet and reconnect with friends and colleagues from a variety of agencies, organizations, and communities. It's a time to appreciate and applaud significant achievements across the Mountains to Sound Greenway, including land conservation, habitat restoration, trail connections, historic preservation, community engagement, and more. It's our chance to congratulate and thank the individuals and organizations that made those projects possible. Deeper down, though, the annual dinner is about setting the table for future partnerships, for future projects, for future accomplishments that still lay ahead of us. Sharing a meal together is very Greenway. Sitting side by side, we make personal connections, we spark conversations, and we build relationships that nurture collaboration. Celebrating everyone's achievements is also very Greenway. Seeing what others have been able to accomplish motivates us to keep working on projects that might take years of patience and persistence to bring to fruition. It inspires us to think about what could come next. How might we be involved in making it happen? It builds the momentum of partnership and coalition that have made the Mountains to Sound Greenway what it is today and will be essential for making its future take shape. Designation of the Mountains to Sound Greenway as a National Heritage Area marks a major milestone that was reached through the cumulative impacts of all these projects we celebrate in the Parade of Accomplishments this year and in the years before. But we know our work is not done. NHA designation is our opportunity to redouble our commitment to a vision of the Greenway as a place where all people can connect with this landscape and care for it in a way that sustains both people and nature for generations to come. To realize this vision, we embrace the richness of the region's cultural diversity and its verdant natural heritage. We seek to listen and learn from the many and varied stories that portray people's experiences, past and present, and that together weave the tapestry of the Greenway's history. And we remain true to our values of inclusion, collaboration, positivity, and pragmatism. Whether you've been involved in the Greenway from the very beginning, or you're here for the very first time and you're wondering how to get started, I hope each of you will be part of the Greenway's future. And I'd encourage you to ask yourself a few questions tonight. What interests or excites you about the Greenway? What skills and capabilities do you have to share? And then look around your table. Look around the room. Who might you learn from? Who might you team up with? What might you accomplish if you combine your talents and resources? And how could you help to conserve and enhance the Mountains to Sound Greenway and make it a place where our connections to nature make people's lives better? Thank you again for being here with us tonight for the annual dinner and for being part of the incredible Greenway community. We're now going to start the Parade of Accomplishments. So, Parade of Accomplishment participants, if you could please start making your way over to the wall to my right. Becca Kedenberg and Caroline Villanova will meet you there, and they'll help you get lined up when we get ready. While they're doing that, because it'll take a couple minutes, I want to encourage the rest of you to make sure that you've introduced yourselves to the other people around your table. We do open seating at the annual dinner as a way to create a little bit of social serendipity when you sit at a table with someone you might not have met yet. So this is your chance to make a new connection. While parade participants are on the move, please take a couple minutes to introduce yourselves to others around your table, and I'll be back up to introduce the parade in a moment. Thank you all. All right, we are ready to start the Parade of Accomplishments. Please join me in welcoming our parade marshals, Marie Quashis and Josh Lipsky. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. I know John already said the thank you for coming speech, but I just want to say thank you for stepping out of your Zoom boxes, leaving your living rooms and coming here in person, especially on a night with indisputably terrible Seattle weather. Also, I'm really excited to be reunited with Josh, who's been my partner in crime on the Parade of Accomplishments for a few years, if you skip that whole pandemic gap. So good to see you again, Josh. So without further ado, I'd like to start and get everyone updated on all the fun things that the Greenway's been up to for the last year. First up, we have the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trail in Bellevue. The city of Bellevue built a new 1.2-mile trail segment of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trail, paralleling Interstate 90, making it safer and more enjoyable for people to walk, ride, and roll through Bellevue's busy Factoria neighborhood. This helps fill an important east-west gap in the regional trail system that will eventually connect to Issaquah. The City of Bellevue won a state and national American Public Works Association award for exemplary design for the first phase of this innovative trail construction, which included a bridge and tunnel to traverse a major highway interchange. Secretary of Transportation Roger Millar, Mayor Lynn Robinson, and engineer Chris Masek of Bellevue, please come up and place a bicycle on the map.
Hello, everyone. I, too, want to express my gratitude to Greenway staff for letting Marie and I do this one more time. It's really a highlight of my year. Now we're going to celebrate new East Rail connections. A new section of gravel East Rail connecting Kirkland to Woodinville opened in May 2022. This East Rail section connects from the north end of the Cross Kirkland corridor to Northeast 145th Street in Woodinville, near the Chateau Saint Michel winery. The city of Woodinville constructed a new signalized trail crossing at Northeast 145th Street, allowing East Rail users to access the Sammamish River Trail. Major construction has also been in full swing. Work is underway on several large East Rail bridges, including the Totem Lake Connector in Kirkland, Northeast 8th Street overcrossing in Bellevue, and a bridge over Interstate 405 in Bellevue. So, please come back on stage, Secretary of Transportation Roger Millar and Mayor Lynn Robinson. Please join them, Taldi Harrison from REI Co-op, Blake Trask on behalf of Council Member Claudio Balducci, East Rail Partners Executive Director Catherine Hollis, and Director of King County Parks Warren Jimenez. And please place a jogger on the map.
Next up, we have new developments at Preston Mill Park. Yes, which has a new sign. That was not actually the announcement. Decades in the making, construction at the Jim Ellis Memorial Regional Park at Preston Mill Park, took place this summer with construction of a new pedestrian tunnel under State Route 202, new restrooms and parking lot, and gravel paths. Greenway restoration crews and volunteers will continue invasive weed removal and planting of native trees along the salmon-bearing Raging River. Please come on stage, King County Parks Project Manager TJ Davis and Jones & Jones landscape architect Charlie Scott, and please place a tree ring on the map.
Now let's celebrate the Lower Issaquah Creek Restoration Project. Located just downstream of Southeast 62nd Street in Issaquah, this project enhanced approximately 1,200 lineal feet of Issaquah Creek and restored 7 acres of floodplain, riparian, and upland habitats for the benefit of Endangered Species Act listed Chinook salmon and other fish and wildlife. The project also increases floodplain area and storage volume and habitat complexity. The restoration design included excavating side channels and backwater channels, as well as installing large woody material features to aid in future channel complexity development. Alan Quinn from Issaquah Public Works, Greg Johnson and Marina French from the Watershed Company, and Eric Davidow from Davidow Consulting Group. Please come up and place a salmon on the map.
Next up, outdoor education at St. Edward State Park. The new Environmental Education and Research Center at St. Edward State Park is an innovative public-private academic partnership between Washington State Parks, University of Washington Bothell, and Daniels Real Estate. The new center includes a state-of-the-art classroom designed by Sundberg, Kennedy, and Lee Au Young architects in an historic building, The center has an outdoor learning area built by Eric Carlson and utilizes St. Edward State Park's diverse habitats as an outdoor classroom. Planning was guided by our own Elizabeth Lunny, and programming by UW Bothell will connect students of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities with nature, and strive to create K-16 educational pathways to college degree programs and careers in environmental fields. Washington State Parks Ranger Daryl Klein, University of Washington Bothell Professor Santiago Lopez, architect John Kennedy, and Susan Carlson from E3 Washington, please come up and place a microscope on the map.
Next, let's celebrate South Seattle community engagement and stewardship projects. ECOS is dedicated to working together on a number of community engagement initiatives, including Green Seattle Partnership for Restoration at Seward Park, ecological enhancement and volunteer engagement at additional locations in the South Beacon Hill neighborhood, and providing multicultural resources to community engagement efforts. Lisa Seco from Green Seattle Partnership and the Seattle Parks and Recreation Department, and Miranda Perez from ECOS. Please come up and place a tree on the map.
Next one is also in South Seattle. I'm excited to share this one because it's in my neighborhood. Cheesty Trails and Bike Park and park improvements in Seattle, not in my neighborhood. Parks in Seattle have benefited from major improvements this year. The Seattle Parks and Recreation Department has opened and or renovated more than a dozen parks. Just sit with that for a minute. It's a lot of parks. It's a lot of work. That includes Duwamish Waterway Park and a yet-to-be-named park in Lake City. Detective Cookie Chess Park opened on a Seattle Department of Transportation right-of-way. The Seattle Parks District approved its second 6-year budget to dramatically increase stewardship of public lands. Tonight, we celebrate a park that took many partners to complete: Cheesty mountain bike and pedestrian trails in the Rainier Valley. Executive Director of the Seattle Parks Foundation, Rebecca Baer, Executive Director of Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, Yvonne Kraus, and Friends of Cheesty Green Space volunteers, Joel and Mary DeJong, please come up and place a mountain bike on the map.
I'm looking forward to riding the park soon. Now let's celebrate the Tollgate Farm renovation. Skyview Metropolitan Parks District and the City of North Bend are making improvements to Tollgate Farm. This property was conserved thanks to the Trust for Public Land, King County, and North Bend more than 2 decades ago. Now, renovations include construction of a barn, restoration of the yellow farmhouse, new garden beds and fields that local farmers can lease, and improvements for public access, including safe parking and new trail connections. The historic farm and community gathering space now includes vegetable patches and a sunflower garden from Frisky Girl Farms and pastured meats by Feral Woman Farm. Greenway staff, on behalf of North Bend and on behalf of Skyview's Parks, please come up and place a barn on the map.
Next up, we have the Snoqualmie Pass Firehouse. The firehouse, a former Forest Service fire station, was renovated by Evolution Projects to house the Laconia Market, Evo Retail, and Gear Rental, and Past Life Workspace in this historic building. Forest Service visitor services include a new video about the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area. Brian McNeil from the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest and Trevor Kostanich from Evolution Projects, please come up and place a firehouse on the map.
Now let's celebrate the Thorpe Mill renovation and interpretation. The Thorpe Mill Historic Preservation Board successfully raised funds to replace the structure's roof. With funding from the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation and the Washington Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, the new roofing protects the interior machinery, circa 1883, from weather and fire. Additionally, new interpretive signage was added to educate visitors about the seasonal production of ice on site. Greenway staff, on behalf of the Thorpe Mill Town Historic Preservation Society, please come up and place a stalk of wheat on the map.
Next up, we have the West Fork Teanaway Trails Plan. Washington State Department of Natural Resources and Washington Trails Association convened a coalition of local, human-powered recreation users to consult on a proposed trail system for the West Fork Teanaway. Over the past 1.5 years, the group developed and honed a proposal that would provide multi-use, multi-experiential routes while respecting private property and wildlife corridors. The plan is currently in the permitting stage and will be poised for implementation in coming seasons. I'm excited to see it come. We have Alan Carter Mortimer and Austin Easter from Washington Trails Association to represent the group. Please come up and place a plan on the map.
Our next set of accomplishments are our Great American Outdoors Act projects. Great American Outdoors Act projects in the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area this summer included reconstruction on the Annette Lake and Snow Lake trails, trail improvements at Franklin Falls, installation of 120 bear-proof food containers in the Middle Fork, Snoqualmie, and I-90 corridor campgrounds, replacement of deteriorated concrete picnic tables at Ken Wilcox, Cle Elum, and Beverly campgrounds, and more. Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Jewel Branaugh and U.S. Representative Kim Schreier celebrated this much-needed maintenance funding at a Franklin Falls event in June. Jody Wheel, supervisor of the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, please come up and place a shovel on the map.
This is always my favorite one. The next one is the Greenway student internships. Internships are a great way to help students build confidence and foundational knowledge needed to choose conservation-related post-secondary education programs and careers. Thanks to the support of our generous donors, corporate and agency partners, and grants, we were able to expand our internship programs this year in a pretty big way. About 50 teens participated, which is up from 12 in pre-pandemic times. Clean Water Ambassadors is back in person and celebrating its 7th year. YES, which stands for Youth Engaged in Sustainable Systems, doubled in size in its second year, adding Riverview School District to Highline School District. And excitingly, we launched a new student internship called Burien Green Teens. Representing this group, we have Shirin Choi from Clean Water Ambassadors and Adai Gonzalez from Burien Green Teens. Please come up and place a magnifying glass on the map.
Well, last but certainly not least, let's celebrate our work this year in the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area. Over the last 3 years, hundreds of people representing tribes, governments, agencies, nonprofits, local businesses, and community groups shared their ideas and input about the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area Management Plan. The management plan will guide and support collaborative projects that preserve, interpret, and celebrate the cultural, historical, and natural features of the Greenway National Heritage Area, setting the stage for more parade of accomplishments in the years to come. One of the first actions under the plan was for WashDOT to install new Greenway signs along I-90 and Highway 18. Members of the National Heritage Area Advisory Committee, please come up and place the Greenway logo on the map. Thank you, everyone.
John will be right back.
Big group to thank at the end there. Wow. Thank you, Josh and Marie, for leading us through the parade. And thank you to all of our parade participants. Could we give everybody another round of applause? These kind of partnership-based projects are what the Greenway is all about, and we're really grateful to have the opportunity to celebrate you all tonight. And I also want to just say the weather was a mess today, and we had a lot of people that had to have stand-ins, and so in absentia, I do want to recognize we had some people that really wanted to be here on stage representing their own project. We'll figure out a way to get their picture in front of this sign another time. Next up are the Jim Ellis Spirit Awards. The Jim Ellis Spirit Award honors the example that Jim set from the very beginning of the Greenway Trust, recognizing individuals who embody the Greenway values of collaboration, inclusion, trustworthiness, positivity, and pragmatism. These values guided Jim's life of service, and at the Greenway Trust, we try to bring them to every aspect of our work. To present these awards tonight, please welcome to the stage Jim's grandson, David Ellis.
First off, I just want to say on behalf of the Ellis family how truly wonderful and amazing it is to see all of you gathered here today, sitting shoulder to shoulder, swapping stories, and celebrating all of the amazing accomplishments of the people that we just saw before us, and especially for these three individuals it's just going to be wonderful to hear their stories. I wish that you all had the opportunity, and I'm sure many of you did, to meet Jim Ellis and his very charismatic presence. And I'm sure that if he were here today, he would give these three recipients a hearty slap on the back and a good show. So without further ado, please welcome our first recipient of the Jim Ellis Spirit Award, Gabby Gonzalez. Please come to the stage. Thank you. Yes. Gabby comes to us from the city of Burien and works for City of Burien Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services, and has been instrumental in launching new internships such as Burien Green Teens and Youth Engaged in Sustainable Systems. She is a pillar of her community and has a passion for the beautiful parks and open spaces in Burien and connecting all members of the community to them. Gabby is passionate about mentoring youth and advocates for support of youth programming with elected officials and partner organizations. She is a connector and community builder through partnerships with teachers, community members, and organizations working in the city of Burien. Congratulations again, Gabby. Next up, we have a recipient who unfortunately is not able to join us this evening due to inclement weather. But nonetheless, I would like you all to join me in giving a big round of applause for Deborah Davis. Deb Davis has been a fixture on the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest for more than 4 decades, starting out as a Youth Conservation Corps member before graduating to seasonal and then permanent worker. Her many titles include Lead Forestry Technician, Crosscut Saw Program Manager, and Lead Only Certified Blaster on the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest. Deb's vast wealth of knowledge and experience has been instrumental in keeping both the Cle Elum Ranger District's recreation program and its popular trails up and running. She has consistently worked wonders with limited resources and effectively utilized partnerships to ensure that human trails into the wilderness provide a safe experience while minimizing harm to the forest. Congratulations, Deb. And please welcome to the stage our final recipient of the evening for the Jim Ellis Spirit Award, Alex Weinberg. Alex Weinberg working on the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. He's been working in the Snoqualmie District for the past 5 years and has been doing an amazing job managing recreation along the I-90 corridor. Alex is dedicated to making the forest open and accessible with a positive attitude and approach rooted in working closely with partners to achieve success. Alex covers so much ground, literally and figuratively, from annual maintenance on the district's trails and facilities to design, development, and the project funding for the rerouting the Middle Fork Trail, to working with the Greenway Trust team on accessible improvements at Camp Brown, and more recently leading projects to make meaningful improvements to Snow Lake, Annette Lake, and the Denny Creek Franklin Falls area as part of the Great American Outdoors Act. Congratulations, Alex.
Congratulations, Gabby. Congratulations, Alex. And thank you, David, for helping us carry on, kind of celebrate the spirit that your grandfather instilled in all of us. It's now my pleasure to introduce our final speaker this evening, Sally Jewell. Sally has worn many hats through her accomplished career: engineer, banker, CEO of REI Co-op, and Secretary of the Interior. She's a champion for the environment and for sustainability, mentoring students and advising companies about the positive roles we can all play. Sally was also one of the founding board members of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust and the second board president after Jim Ellis. Please join me in welcoming a forever friend of the Greenway, Sally Jewell.
Thank you, John, and what a fun evening. What a fun evening. You know, we look at these, that you really have upgraded the map. I kind of missed the one that was falling apart. I know Amy doesn't miss it because she was gluing it together every year with the different colors of pencil, and Nancy started it, and Cynthia continued it, and so we've upgraded. But all of these little icons that we see combined together with thousands of icons over the last 31 years to make an amazing, amazing asset, not just for this area, but for the whole country and beyond. So everybody in this room, give yourselves a huge round of applause for what this represents. So I just want to point out, having been a public servant for 4 tiny years out of a 40-plus year career, that I have a deep, deep appreciation for people that devote their careers and their lives to public service. And it's not lost on me that the 3 people that were just up on stage were all public servants. So if you've ever been a public servant for a tribe, for a local community, for a county, for a state, for a city, for the federal government, could you just raise your hands? And can the rest of us just give them a big round of applause? Look at that. Look at that. Thank you. Thank you. I have such admiration for public servants. It is tough, and it's easy for people to give you a hard time. I know this personally. My skin is a lot thicker, and I have less of a sense of humor than I used to. But I can't say enough about the great work that you do, so thank you. And a lot of times you don't get thanked. In fact, you hear that the toilet paper's out or the garbage is overflowing. And the last group I just want to thank are people that have worked for the Mountains to Sound Greenway, past and present. Probably have a few future ones here as well. Thank you for everything that you've done over these last 31 years to give us this extraordinary asset in our mix. Could we just give all of them a big round of applause? Thank you. working up a sweat here already. So I just want to reflect a little bit on my own personal journey in the Greenway to begin with. And I would say my journey in the Greenway began in 1959 when, as a 3-year-old immigrant from the United Kingdom, we started adventuring in this area. And my parents had Dinah. Dinah was a very old 1950s something dark green station wagon. And I remember running out of gas regularly, and I remember overheating regularly going up the Sunset Highway over Snoqualmie Pass. It was on the way to camp near the Ginkgo Petrified Forest. It was on the way to see the magnificent dams along the Columbia River with absolutely no idea what kind of an impact those dams had had on the fish in our region and the habitat and the people who have stewarded these resources since time immemorial. I was the first member of my family to even contemplate skiing in 1965 when I went to the Renton Center and got on the Fiorini ski bus and went up to Snoqualmie Pass. And we knew when we went through the little village of North Bend on the Sunset Highway, it was time to put on our 2-layer lace-up Kauflack ski boots. How many of you even know what that is? All right, so this is an old crowd. We need some younger people here. And I remember on those journeys into the mountains how confusing it was in the winter when we saw these giant white patches in square dimensions by forests, and I never kind of understood why we had that. Why were they there? Why were these giant white patches there? In 1969, I joined the Seattle Mountaineers, and I learned to climb in very dismal weather. And Chair Peak and McClellan Butte and other places that are so close by in the Mountains of Sound Greenway. And it was 1990 when some citizen activists got together and said, let's do a march to highlight what is here. And they were led by Jack Horning and Harvey Manning, both early Greenway board members, both actually kind of a pain in the neck. Because they were citizen activists, that's what they did, and it was really important. And along with them were people like Ted and Gretchen Thompson, and I think we got the 3 Thompson, or 2 of the 3 Thompson boys. We have them all here? All right, here we go. Thank you all for your parents and everything that they have done and everything that you have done as well for the Mountains to Sound Greenway. The Trust for Public Land was deeply engaged, and they said, there's something here that we need to latch onto. And they grabbed a couple of their people, Craig Lee and Donna McBain, and said, we're going to do this, and they recruited Jim Ellis. So how many of you knew Jim Ellis? Show of hands. Okay, not that many. His memorial was right here, so this place has special meaning. Jim was 68 when the Greenway was founded in 1991. And we were very fortunate that he and his brother Bob had built a cabin in the Raging River not far from the Preston Mill site because he had a deep connection to this area. And he said yes, that he would take on this new project. And he went around looking for money and looking for people to join his board. And almost without exception, he went to the titans of industry, and all of them said, yes, I'll give money, and no, I don't have time to join this board, which was very fortuitous for people like me, because in my case, Rainier Bank, John Mangles, the then president of the bank, said, I don't have time for that, but we will support it. But I got this young whippersnapper that seems to have a green streak. How about her? I was 34, Jim was 68. And I'm now 2 years shy of being the age Jim was when he started this. So for any of us that think we're done, I just want you to ponder Jim. So many of you know Jim's story. His book that he'd worked on so long will be coming out in 2023, which is fantastic. I've read parts of the manuscript. It's just amazing. But I will say that his life of service, the rule of thirds that he taught me, and I've tried to live my life by, and so many other people in this room have done the same, was a third of your life for home or family, however you define home, a third of your life for work, and a third of your life for community. That's who Jim Ellis was. So for our 3 Jim Ellis Spirit Award winners tonight, Gabby, Deb, and and Alex, Jim would have been so proud of all that you have done because you embody the spirit of Jim Ellis, and you are exactly the kind of people he would want here on stage because he wanted to celebrate the people that really did the work. That was Jim. So congratulations to all of you. You have an award in the name of a very amazing person. So one thing that Jim taught me, more through his actions than his words, was a phrase that I use often now, which is progress moves at the speed of trust. You can't make progress if people don't trust each other. And we've seen an erosion of trust in our society. And yet we see what happened up here just tonight. And we think about the value of the relationships that are built around the table tonight. And we think about that early board of the Greenway and the board today of the Greenway that is still meeting in the same place, except it's now renamed the Jim Ellis Preston Community Center. Is that what it's called? Okay, it's close. Well, it's by the Jim Ellis Memorial Regional Park, but it's the community center at any rate. And I remember those early days, and I'm sure Bill Chapman does too, and some of the others who were here. How many of you were on the original board? Oh God, Bill, we're getting old. There aren't too many names here. We're not really that old. But Bill's older than me, and that's really what counts. Jim understood the value of relationships and listening, and he said in those early days, and Nancy Keith will remember this, as we were saying, really $15 per person per night, you know, when we do these dinners, it's kind of expensive. I mean, people would probably be willing to pay, and Jim's like, no, they're not paying, and yes, we're having dinner, because when people break bread together, something magic happens, and it did. You had environmentalists sitting across the table from timber companies. You had community activists sitting across the table from business people. You had people that were working in ranching and forestry. You had public servants, everybody coming together, and we got to know each other as individuals. We respected each other. We had fun together. We were friends in service to the Greenway. We had a technical advisory committee, and it was originally led by Bob Rose, who was an advisor to Brian Boyle with the Department of Natural Resources. But more importantly, and Doug McClellan was on the first technical advisory committee, I remember that as a DNR employee, people coming together that really knew these landscapes, and they knew them from different perspectives. They knew them as foresters, they knew them as historians, they knew them as tribal members, they knew them from all kinds of different aspects, and they are what helped define this, because there was no definition of the Greenway other than the I-90 corridor from the mountains to the Sound. What was that? So they really put meat on those bones, and a common set of facts continues to evolve because we learn and we grow, and there's so much more information that comes over time, and that is continuing in the Greenway. So there were some big events that happened. The very first land acquisition, Rattlesnake Ridge. It was optioned by the Trust for Public Land with a gift from Patsy Collins and Forest Legacy money, which was part of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and it runs basically from exit 27 to exit 32. And so when you're driving east or west, if you look to the south side of all the development in North Bend and you see trees that are growing, it all would have been houses if it wasn't for the Greenway. So that was kind of project number one. So those white squares that I saw as a child were part of the checkerboard, of course, that we're all familiar with, where, you know, a section, a square mile to the railroad and a square mile to the Forest Service and a few for state lands, and you have this checkerboard, which is terrible for anything, right? It's terrible for habitat, for connectivity, for forestry, for anything. And the Huckleberry Land Exchange and other land exchanges now has removed those square sections for the most part, that we saw all the time going across the I-90 corridor. It is now largely in Forest Service ownership with some gaps, and private timber companies now own large swaths, and they can manage them as commercial forests, largely on the way up Highway 410 toward Mount Rainier. So it helped make more economic sense and more environmental sense by doing that. The rails to trails conversion, what was the Iron Horse Trail, now the Cascades to Palouse Trail, and the wonderful reopening of the 2-mile-long tunnel, which if you haven't done it, just do it. To be in the middle of that tunnel and to see a pinprick of light at either end when you're there, it's like terrifying and exciting all at the same time. But do wear a raincoat even in the summer. It's cold and it's wet. The I-90 wildlife crossings. I think of Charlie Rains whenever I think about this. Charlie Rains was with the Sierra Club. He was a tireless advocate for saying we don't have connectivity for wildlife from north to south along the Cascade Crest. And so doggedly determined to, when improvements were made to I-90, that it would think of the wildlife. And we now have wildlife crossings. We have that bridge. Yes, it's worth celebrating. And it's safer for humans too, right? People don't do so well when they hit an elk on the road, and certainly the elk don't do well. But we also have less avalanche closures and so on because of this. The Yakima Basin Integrated Plan. Now, the Greenway was a player. There were many players in that and continue to be many players in that, but oh my God, the whole Teanaway watershed, the Yakima Basin watershed, working with the Yakima Nation tribe, fishing, agricultural interests, and a huge amount of work that has been done that is going to be so powerful as we deal with these landscapes during a time of climate change. And then last but not least, in a place that John and I played in just a few days ago or a few weeks ago, the Middle Fork of the Snoqualmie River. The Middle Fork, where 52 cars were pulled out of the river, where Wade Holden and his small nonprofit organization told us about the meth labs along the corridor there and the millions of dollars it cost King County to clean them up. The people that would throw their old paint cans in the river and then shoot holes in them and watch the paint go down the river. Things that happen when we don't recognize and care for our resources. And what do we have now? We have the Garfield ledges that I hiked up with John a couple weeks ago on a beautiful day, which was probably the only day of fall. You have the wheelchair accessible picnic tables and trails that give people who are mobility impaired access right down to the Snoqualmie River Middle Fork. You've got the Granite Lakes Trail, you've got parking lots, and you've got toilet facilities. I was trying to think of some kind of a catchy name. Biffies, I guess. Some great Biffies. You've got the Middle Fork Campground, so much more that has been done, and I think of Mark Boyer and his dogged determination around the Middle Fork. Is Mark here tonight? He's not here, couldn't make it. Okay, well, thank him whenever you see him, because just like Charlie was with on the wildlife crossings, Mark has been on the Middle Fork. Anyway, these are all decisions that happen not by chance, but by choice. This is 31 years of this, of individual projects and people and organizations and public servants and volunteers and donors and everything else coming together. And I will say that this work here was no better training for me as U.S. Secretary of the Interior. I mean, it was extraordinary because it's all around partnerships and it's all around listening to different points of view and finding that common ground. So over so many celebratory dinners, whether they were online or back in person, which is wonderful, we've begun to learn from our mistakes of the past. We've begun to reverse those decisions. We have more open space. We have more thoughtful development. We have enhanced wildlife corridors and revitalized communities. We have improved respect for tribal nations and their rights and their perspectives, with so much more that we need to do in that regard. And we have proven that economic development and environmental protections must go hand in hand. if we're going to shape a sustainable future, which we all know that we need. We've also seen how environmental education and stewardship has shaped the lives of so many young people, opening their eyes to new opportunities, like the young people we saw up here on stage and we saw in the pictures. So the Greenway is needed now more than ever. Our population is going to continue to grow. We need to find a way to get people out, more wilderness on the metro, which was a vision that Harvey Manning and Jim Ellis talked about. We do have it now, but it needs to be bigger because cars can be a challenge, but people visiting with respect generally can be handled well. Our climate is changing. We all know that. We have lower snowpack. We have more intense rain events. We have increased fire risk. That fire that was in the Stevens Pass corridor could easily have been in the Mountains to Sound Greenway and will be at some point in the future. Our public servants are dealing with invasive species and threatened habitat. But there's also people who understand in such big numbers the value of forests, the value of free-flowing rivers and natural areas, not only for carbon sequestration and natural water retention and filtration and all those great things that we have, especially as we enjoy water in the city of Seattle from the Cedar River watershed, but for our own mental health and well-being, and of course, the health and well-being of the species through which we're all interconnected, and we don't even begin to understand those connections. So there's good news. People care, they understand, and support for public lands is increasing. One of the items on the map has to do with the additional funding from the America's Great Outdoors Act. Bipartisan legislation passed during the Trump administration. That's pretty darn extraordinary. Yeah, because people care about public lands. And of course, more progress has continued to be made with some of the bills that have passed in the last couple of years. And locally, I just want to give a shout out to King County residents, probably most of whom are here because Kittitas County's had a hard time getting here. Is anybody here from Kittitas County? I'm so sorry. Oh, well, we got some. Yay, thank you. You're representing the whole east side. You know, when it's this time of year, it's just tough. And so we're missing about 100 people that had planned to come and couldn't come because of the weather. But locally, the Conservation Futures Levy, King County, Proposition 1, passed this month with 70% of the vote. 70%. Yeah, it's huge. And of course, like the interns we see in the Greenway, exposure to nature, especially for young people, leads to smarter decisions on land and resource management. And I think about my childhood and what I witnessed and what we're seeing now driving this corridor, and it's better. It's a lot better. So the seeds that have been laid, and there's a number of people in this room that were in the Greenway as kids that are now adults, some probably even working with the Greenway, it's already happening. And we're ready to pass the baton, and they're ready to take up the baton. And for those of us with gray hair, we still need to help them in whatever we can. Our checkbooks are larger than theirs. That's one way we can help them. And of course, recognition as a natural heritage area is huge. It is putting us on the map nationally. It will bring more people to this area who can learn about the rich cultures of this area, our history, the uniqueness of this region, and that will also bring support at a local, state, and federal level. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that worked on the plan for the National Heritage Area, which is in Interior right now, waiting for approval. It's hard work, really hard work. So I want to wrap up with a little call to action for all of you. I want you to experience your Greenway, especially with young people, and for those who have never had an opportunity to see what kind of treasures lie outside our cities and towns, east and west. And as you drive along I-90, please appreciate the wildlife corridors above and below you. Feel your blood pressure fall as you cruise away from the city going eastbound through the Issaquah Gate. flanked by the lush forests of Grand Ridge and Tiger Mountain. Appreciate the snow-capped peaks that provide our water and the changing character of the forests from east to west. See how fast Mother Nature heals the scars of the past in the landscapes all around you. Marvel at the green stripes on the steep slopes that were once old, eroding logging roads removed by the Greenway and its partners now more than 20 years ago. Watch the elk browse in the Snoqualmie Valley on your way up the Middle Fork. Drop your kayak or cast your fly into the river. Hike in the Alpine Lakes wilderness. Take your family biking through that 2-mile-long tunnel. Visit the Thorpe Mill and buy some great fruit from a roadside stand in Kittitas County after you've hiked the Coal Mines Trail and maybe explored the Teanaway Community Forest. And support the local businesses everywhere you go. And please support your Greenway. How can you do that? Well, you can start by grabbing one of those envelopes on the table, which is underneath the tree, which I think John's going to tell you to take home with you tonight. So you can pass those out. But you can volunteer. You can bring your family out to build a trail and to remove some invasive species. I highly recommend removal of Himalayan blackberry. It's rough. It's hard on you. You feel like you've accomplished something really important for humankind when you've done it. It's very therapeutic. I ask you to vote and to let our elected officials know how much you appreciate the support for public lands, for our health and our economy, like we've seen today, parading across here with elected officials for the work that they've done. Please thank the public servants and the volunteers who care for our public lands. And please, if you have means and inclination, support this small but mighty Mountains of Sound Greenway organization by making a financial contribution of whatever size matches your budget and your heart. And for those of you that are inclined to support the Greenway for a gift of $500 or more tonight, it will be matched up to $20,000 by Maggie Walker and my husband Warren and myself. So we hope you'll join us in supporting this organization. Thanks. And when you have filled those envelopes out, just slide them into that big envelope and the Greenway will pick them up. So I want to just wrap with my favorite proverb that I think about all the time. We don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. So thanks, Greenway, for giving us all the opportunity to leave a better place for the generations that follow. Thanks.
Thanks, Sally, for recounting the story of the Greenway, combining it with your own and helping us all think about how our stories interact with the Greenways. That concludes our formal program tonight, and I want to say thank you again for braving the weather to be here with us tonight to celebrate our friendships, our partnerships, our accomplishments together. We've got the room for a little bit. We don't want to chase anybody out. We tried to leave a little bit of time to continue some visiting. If you do choose to make a donation, please do fill out a card, drop it in the big yellow envelope. If you've got a decent-sized yard, the young trees in the middle of your table are looking for new homes. There's a care tag that will help you determine if you're a good fit for that tree. If you think you are welcome to take it home and try to raise it on your own using the instructions from the care tag. So again, thank you all for being part of the Greenway Trust Annual Dinner. It's so wonderful to be back together. Please enjoy the rest of your evening and look forward to seeing you all next year.